Good afternoon, everyone. I believe it was Sunday evening when I became aware of a possible report from August of 2019 concerning Anthony Warner. The matter record report in and of itself presented a number of questions to which we needed to find more information about before we discussed it publicly. Research on the August 2019 call and police action began on Sunday and continued through this morning as we got more information. Here's what we know. On Wednesday morning, August 21st, 2019, South Precinct patrol officers responded to Seaford Lane on a report from an attorney that a woman who lived there had made suicidal threats and was sitting on her front porch with firearms. Upon arrival, officers saw the woman did have two pistols on her front porch next to her, but they were not in her possession and were unloaded. The woman said the guns belonged to Tony Warner and that she did not want them in her house any longer. During the officer's conversation with the woman, she said that her boyfriend Warner was building bombs in an RV trailer at his residence. The attorney said that Warner frequently talked about military and bomb making, and that he believed Warner knew that what he was doing and was capable of making a bomb. Out of concern for the woman's emotional state, officers called mobile crisis. They in turn spoke with the woman and determined that she was in need of care. Based on what they heard, South Precinct officers responded to Warner's home on Bakertown Road, knocked on the door but received no answer. They saw the RV in the backyard. It was fenced off and they could not see inside the RV. Officers tried several times to get a response at the door. They knocked and knocked and knocked, but never made contact with Anthony Warner. One of the responding officers called the hazardous device unit and relayed the substance of the call. The following day, hazardous device unit officer Kevin Pollard began follow-up. On the 22nd, Officer Pollard sent a narrative over to the FBI Nashville office to do a check on Warner for prior military connections. Later in the day, on August 22nd, the FBI report came back that it checked the holdings and found no records whatsoever on Warner. On August 28th, the FBI reported that Department of Defense checks on Warner was all negative. During this time, Officer Pollard reports that he drove by the home for several days and he had an officer on standby just in the event that if he made contact with Officer Warner, they could do a knock and talk and try to get inside the residence or inside of the mobile home. Officer Pollard continued trying to make contact with Warner through no avail through his landline as well. On August 29th, 2019, Officer Pollard phoned the attorney who was on the scene during the suicidal call. During that conversation, Officer Pollard said that he was attempting to locate Warner and that he was told that he was known to go on camping trips for weeks at a time. Officer Pollard recalled asking whether he could just take a look inside the RV parked behind Warner's home. Officer Pollard recalls the attorney telling him that Warner did not care for the police and I'm not going to be able to let you all do that. It's a quote. Officer Pollard recalls the attorney saying that Warner is capable of making a bomb, but didn't believe he was doing so and didn't believe he was violent. Also during late August, our Specialized Investigations Division looked for any open source information on Warner and they found none. At no time was there evidence or reasonable suspicion that a crime was being committed, and our officers had no legal basis to go into Warner's fenced-in yard or home during August 2019. No additional action was taken after late August, and to the best of my knowledge, no other reports or information about Warner came into the police department. We did not have the knowledge in August 2019, and we had no legal basis for search warrants or subpoenas based on what we knew at the time. Officer Pollard, as a member of our HDU team, has been working the blast site with our federal partners, and I actually pulled him off of the site this morning to get more information pertaining to this. With that said, I'll take any questions.
Hey, Chief, a couple of questions here. I'm curious. I know that obviously there's a process here, and hindsight is 2020. But what would it have taken for officers to have legally searched that RV?
Well, to our knowledge, we only had one call for service. That was the lady who had made suicidal threats, and that she was subsequently unavailable. We received no other calls, so it would have been good if we had received more calls. Officer Pollard, who works in our explosive unit, said he couldn't smell any type of explosive at the house. There was no signs of any bomb making, so it would have taken signs that actual crime was being committed, that a bomb was actually being made. But to the officer's view, the only thing he saw was an RV that he couldn't see inside and that he wasn't allowed access into it.
You had the Chief, you had the girlfriend's claim. Chief, you had the girlfriend's claim. Chief, one more quick question. You had the girlfriend's claim he was making a bomb in the RV. You had the attorney's claim that he had the knowledge to do it, and yet that still wasn't enough.
That's not enough. I mean, you have a girlfriend that said that, and really they could say that about me. They could say that I have the ability, that I'm making a bomb, and that I have the ability to do so, but it doesn't give people the right to go inside. But even with that being said, the officers knocked on the door several times. They contacted the attorney. They wanted to get permission to be inside. They had no basis for a search warrant or subpoena. And so based on that, the attorney said he wasn't going to allow that to be done. And so the officers couldn't do any more at that point.